Alright, for the new cards. So this is reviewing cards that are they are released as of the 22nd of March, and the cards released so far, there have now been released, I think, a total of how many? 31 cards. Cool. Let's take a look at them, see what they hold, what they mean, what they do. Maybe I will have some opinions about them. But let's check out the new cards. So we're starting out with the Druid card. It's called Verdant Longneck, and it has the battle cry Adapt. I don't know, did they list the Adapt things? They didn't. Okay, so Adapt is a new mechanic that's coming with the new set. And it's a buff for the minion that gets adapted, right? So there are several choices. It's like a discovery effect. I think there are 6 or 9. I can't remember exactly how many options there are, but there is a wide variety of choices that you can make. You can gain stealth, divine shield, and several other keywords like taunt. There's a +1/+1. Wind Fury. There's a whole bunch of different ones that you can choose from. 6 choices. Alright. So you could give this 5 mana 5/4, which is crap stats, a buff to something. +3 health, I think, is one. +3 attack is another. So you get the random 3 choices for this guy out of the 6 available. And then it adapts for the situation, right? You pick the best one you can get there, and it can be like has a lot of health if you need to kill a lot of 5 health minions. You can do that. Can be aggressive if you need to set up lethal for the next turn. You can do a lot of different things. But the stats on this minion is just so weak. It's a common, so it might be like arena playable. It is a beast as well. Wow, I didn't realize it was a beast. 5 mana, let's say +3, and it's a 5 mana 5/7. It's probably not playable. Yeah, like Strangathon Tiger, 5 mana 5/5 with stealth, I think is one of the better beast 5-drops, right? That's the beast 5-drop, I'd say. Strangathon Tiger. I'm just seeing if it's maybe playable in like Beast Druid. Like, I don't know how powerful the adapt keyword will be, like the choice I can actually make. Yeah, but it's not great. Like it's maybe like the 29th and 30th card, so it's not the great one. It's like below average, I'd say, in power level. And then any other deck that's not like a beast synergy deck. Shit. Why do I have to eat this now? I don't know, I'm hungry. Okay. I'd say it's not really playable in general, and like maybe in the Beast Druid, but it's probably not good enough there as well, so I'd probably play something else. So that's an unplayable card for the first one, which is, it's a good arena card, I guess. Yeah, above average arena pick, I'd say. Which is kind of nice. I think the adapt minions would be really good in arena, but that's just about it, I think. So the next one is a Hunter card. It's a 7 mana 9/9. It's a legendary. Every class in this expansion will have 1 legendary each. Minion, that is, and then they will also have another legendary, which is the class quest. So they will have in total 2 legendaries per class. So Hunter will have this Swamp King Dread, and his effect is that it attacks every minion that the opponent plays when he plays it. So if he plays a 3/3, Swamp King Dread will charge into the 3/3, attack it, and take damage. So it will, after the attack into the 3/3 that your opponent played, it will be a 9/6, for example. And if he plays a poisonous minion, it's called poisonous now. They changed it so that when this minion damages a minion, it kills it. That's a thing that they had before. They made it a keyword now, so now it's called poisonous, and you can adapt poisonous. So Swamp King Dread trades with a poisonous minion, it will die. That's a thing. There's some counterplay there. he is really overstated for 7 mana. Like a 9/9, that's really good stats for the mana you pay for him. So he also has an instant effect onto the opponent's next turn and trading into all those minions that he plays, which is kind of nice. Hunter having board control, you need to push to get in and make the hero power be the last bunch of damage, but you need to have board control before that. So Swamp King Dread kind of achieves board control. I mean, I think it's looking pretty nice to me in Hunter. But my concern is that, like, this expansion Hunter's been awful. That has been before. So I don't know if this will be enough. We haven't seen that many cards yet, so it is a card that goes in the right direction, I think. I think it's an above average Hunter legendary, so I think it will see play. But the question is just if Hunter will see play rather than this card. I mean, if Hunter sees play, I think this will be part of it. We'll see how many adapt cards get played. So if there are a lot of adapt cards that potentially can get poisonous and one-shot Swamp King Dread, I don't think it will be too great. But if the adapt keyword is not too big of a thing in the metagame, I think Swamp King Dread will see a lot of play. So it depends more on that than anything. It's probably a way above average minion if there aren't a lot of adapt minions in play. So it can be a really powerful 7-drop 4 Hunter in the new standard metagame after rotation. Also concerning endgame finishers, like Ragnaros is rotating out, for example. So there are a few less cards to choose from when you're picking high end, and Hunter getting this powerful of a minion can actually make it a contender for one of the better meta decks there, the next standard. Alright, so I think it would definitely be a good card, above average, I'd say, for legendary. Alright, on to the next one, Arcanologist. It's a Mage Common, 2 mana 2/3. Mage Common historically has been the plague of Arena, right? So, Arcanologist, Batcry, draw a secret from your deck. So it draws a secret, it's a tutor effect. And that hasn't been a big thing in Hearthstone. I'm saying tutor, it's not really a thing people that haven't played card games before, like Magic, know of. Because it's not really a thing in Hearthstone so far. Tutor is when you draw a specific card out of your deck. So let's say you play a pirate and you have patches in your deck. That's a tutor effect. It searches for the patches, finds it, and pulls it out of the deck. That's a tutor. And this draws a secret, which is a specific kind of card. So it's a secret tutor effect. That might be good to know is a word for the future, because they're printing more and more cards like this. It increases consistency in their deck, so it makes it do the thing it does more often. Like having a turn 2 Arcanologist into a turn 3 secret can be a good curve, maybe in Arena. Secrets can have a big impact. This will probably be a pretty good Arena card. It's a 2 mana 2/3, which is like a vanilla 2-drop, right? With a big upside. Drawing a card is a big thing in Hearthstone. Drawing a card is nothing you can like sneeze off, right? It's a powerful effect on a common. I don't know if it's gonna be a big thing in Arena, but I think it's definitely going to be a plague in Constructed to face. It can make the upside of this counteract the low value of cards like Kabbalist. What's his face? The 1 mana 2/1 that plays a secret for you. That has very low value, but Arcanologist gains a lot of value, but it's pretty low tempo. So those combined can give you the value you need, and then also the tempo after you draw the secret. So specific secret synergy decks, this will be pretty crazy. They didn't make Secret Mage work the last expansion, but this might push it over the edge and make it playable. It would surprise me if there weren't any more Secret Synergy cards printed than just this. So we might see some more Mage cards that synergize more with secrets. That's pretty possible, I'd say. It's such a big effect as this one, and on a common as well. I don't think you will see that much Arena play though, because you actually need a secret in the deck, and if you don't have one already, it's not sure that you will get one, even if you take the Arcanology. So probably a staple in Standard or post-rotation. Might make for a cool synergy deck with the secrets. An above average common for sure. Alright, on to mage common spell. Let's read some things here in chat, see what people have to say. Secret Mage Ink. Easier to combo with those other secret cards than... Yeah, exactly. Less powerful than Mad Scientist, this card, but has some... you can pick where to play secrets and stuff, so... potentially upsides as well, which is kind of cool. Some more counterplay there, you can choose when to play a secret, maybe into their turn X. Playing a mirror entity into when they want to play a big minion is more powerful than into some random turn. Alright, so Flame Gazer, it's a 2-mana spell for mage. 2 mana, deal 2 damage, add a 1/2 elemental to your hand. So the 1/2 elemental is just a 1/2 common card. I think it's a 1/2 for 1 mana with the elemental tag. So it's just a minion. And it doesn't get played instantly, it doesn't come into play, it gets added to your hand, which means that you can activate elemental synergies. And I think this mage spell will see play in mage elemental decks, and I think that's the purpose of it. It is like an okay effect. It's way above average, way below average in power level for what it does. Like 2 mana deal 2 is pretty weak. Flamemaker's also rotating, so that won't really be a thing. It will be probably just spell power and maybe Sorcerer's Apprentice that interacts with it, and then you need place for elementals as well. I don't know how many like spell synergy cards you can fit in a mage elemental deck, but yeah, that having an elemental in hand, the obvious thing that you can do is that play an elemental, and then the next turn you can play an elemental synergy card. The elemental synergy cards that they printed for this common expansion, the ones we've seen so far, they state that if you played an elemental the last turn, do X and do something that's powerful, right? So if you build a mage elemental deck, you get a 1/2 elemental in your hand. It costs only 1 mana, so it easily combines with an elemental for activating elemental synergies. I don't know if this is the card you want to play to activate elemental synergies. And a 2 mana deal 2 is very weak. I don't think you will see much play in Arena. It's probably a below average Arena pick. It's not very powerful. I think a 2-drop in general is more powerful than a 2 mana deal 2. Spells are pretty good though, but I think, yeah, since the last time they changed Arena, spells have a way higher appear rate. You can pick them more often, and then they appear for you more often. Like they show more spells in the draft than they did before after the changes. So this compared to Frostbolt, for example, Frostbolt is way higher tempo, it's a lot more flexibility. I don't know, I don't even know if this is more value. Like a 1/2 has a relatively low impact on the game, it doesn't do anything most of the time, it's just a guy that, as I said, it's probably just for the elemental tag, so a below average spell with potential for play in elemental decks, I think. Probably not seeing play in constructed outside of that elemental deck synergy. And that's just about it. Probably not that picked in Arena either, so pretty underwhelming spell overall, I'd say. Sadly, we'll see what we get for next. Here is the 1 mana 1/2 you get from playing this spell, for example, Flame Gazer. This is a token, so this is used in more things as well. There are more cards that give you a 1 mana 1/2 elemental. It's a pretty cute art though. I like the leaves as well, with how they are not on fire, but hey. Good thing he didn't put the whole forest on fire, he's just burning himself. Alright, on to the next one. Not much to say about that token though, but we'll see if it has play in more cards, so we'll see them in the future. This is the Mage Legendary, Pyros. And as I said before, then every class gets 1 legendary minion, and this is the Mage Legendary minion, it's Pyros, 2 mana 2/2. Text says Death Rattle, return this to your hand as a 6/6 that costs 6. And the 6/6 that costs 6, and let's see if they have, here it is, this is the 6/6 you get back to your hand. This has another card text. It says Death Rattle, return this to hand, and as a 10/10 that costs 10. So does the 10/10 return to hand, and can you play a 14/14 then for 14 mana? That would be weird, right? Yeah, because this has no text. This is the last iteration of Pyros. He gets resurrected twice, and then he dies as a 10-10. Of course, if he doesn't get silenced first, then he dies earlier. Every iteration of Pyros has the elemental tag, so every single one is elemental, right? Yeah, it's an elemental all the way through. So you have 3 minions with the elemental tag, potential elemental synergies, I guess, to get their obvious synergy with Nasot. When this dies, you get the 6/6, and when this dies, this is also another Death Rattle minion. So when you play Nasot, you get almost like, you get an insane amount of value, because you get the 2/2, and when this dies, you get another 6/6, and when the 6 dies, you get 10/10, and then you can play that, etc. Like, you get an insane amount of value out of playing Nasot after having Pyros die as a 2/2, 6/6, and then of course as a 10/10 as well. And if you don't handle a 10/10, you're probably dead in a couple of turns at any life total. So it is a very slow card though, but having a 2/2 in the early game, like, slow cards in general don't help the early game that much. Let's say, like, you look at a card such as a Ronin, it's an 8 mana 7/7 that gives you Arcane Missiles, like that. Having that in the deck just gives you nothing in the early game, but this is always a 2/2 to play turn 2. It puts up a threat, trades with minions, and stops their early game. So a very helpful legendary. Like, it's helping you your early game relatively much compared to like how much value it is in the late game. It gives you an insane amount of value if you get to play it, and it also helps you early. So pretty playable legendary, I'd say, and it should be pretty good in like the longer games, just getting it back. And even like against the Jade deck, just having a 6/6 turn 6 to play rather than not having a curve play is pretty nuts, I'd say. Just have a curve play and put something up. You say this is a pretty slow minion, but just having it playable turn 2, turn 6, and turn 10, just having a minion and using your mana efficiently in curve, I think can be a really high benefit, rather than floating mana, maybe playing inefficiently. Like, playing on curve is a huge thing in Hearthstone, and using all your mana, it is a below average statted minion every time you play it, but you do put a lot of stats into play, in total 18 stats. So I think it will be a playable legendary. Definitely. Starting out as a 2-drop is pretty strong, I think. I don't know how playable Mage will be. The thing is also, I think this is a playable minion in Reno Mage, and Reno is rotating out. So I don't really know how that will work out. Like, Value Mage is probably a thing of the past. I don't think we've seen the Mage quest though. That might make Control Mage viable, right? I don't think we've seen the Mage quest. We saw the Priest quest. We'll get to that later, but that Priest quest enables a longer game plan. It gives you a huge heal. It sets your life total to a high amount. Seeing this Mage legendary, it would be... it would kind of make sense for them to get a quest that enables Control Mage, seeing as this is their legendary card, which is kind of interesting. But I like the card. I think it's very interesting. It has a lot of synergies, both elemental and death rattle synergies for Nasot. It's also like a very interesting way to use your mana like every part of the way to turn 10. So overall, I think it's a good legendary. It's a pretty cool one. Not having any spell synergies in Mage is kind of weird. Like, they generally have a lot of spell synergies, but this one doesn't. It's more like focus on minion play overall. But yeah, I think it will see play, depending on the quest, of course. I will get to that in a later review, so we haven't seen that one yet, but definitely interesting. On to the next card. Dino-Size. It's a Paladin buff card or debuff card if they have over 10 attack and health, but that's probably not happening very often. It's an 8 mana that sets a minion's attack and health to 10. So if you have a 1/1 in play and you Dino-Size it, it's a 10/10 that you can attack with immediately, so it's potentially 10 burst damage. You can also Bluegill with the charge. Dino-Size that and attack phase, get the burst out of that. Rag is rotating out, which is an 8 mana finisher. You have Tyrion and you have Rag Lightlord also. Like, you have 8 mana plays already that are very powerfully Paladin. That slot is quite contested. So I don't really see where Dino-Size would make sense to play, as Tyrion is also 8 mana and Rag Lightlord. So. It's tough to see it seeing much play. Because of that fact, if there weren't good 8 mana finishes in Paladin, it could potentially see play mid-range Paladin. I guess Tyrion is quite slow, it doesn't have the same burst potential that Dino-Size does. You get the 15 damage out of Ashbringer though, so it is very valuable. I don't think it's a great card though, and considering that Tyrion and Lightlord is as well 8 mana, it probably won't see much play. Probably an okay arena card though. Being epic, it won't see much play in arena either though, so sad that it's an 8 mana effect. We'll probably want to see it a bit lower costed and maybe tiny bit more efficient, like 6 mana, set the minions attack and health to 8. I think that might see play, but at the 8 slot that's really tough to argue for being playable. I think it won't see play because of that, the fact that Paladin has good 8 mana plays already, which is kind of sad. But yeah, that is how it is. On to the next card, we have Sunkeeper Tarim, which is the Paladin legendary. This is quite interesting card. It's a 6 mana 3/7, which is quite understated, but the effect is quite powerful. It has Taunt, and it also has a battle cry which sets all other minions attack and health to 3. So it's the Keeper of
Come in and type in the chat some good karma.
What's going on there? Oh, the Fats. Thanks for the host. Alright, but yeah, it's the Keeper of Uldaman effect, but board wide. So it's on your own minions and it's also on your opponent's minions. It will probably be a very good card to have against Jade Druid. Jade cards in general are quite weak to this, I'd say. And it having Taunt is really key. Because if you set all your enemies' minions to 3/3, it has to attack into the 3/7 Sunkeeper Tarim that has Taunt. So if he doesn't Druid Hero Power Sunkeeper Tarim or something similar, maybe if you're facing a Priest, then the 3/7 he can't like ping it as a mage could. He has to stack 3/3s into Sunkeeper Tarim, which is pretty amazing value for that card. And then it also buffing up your own dudes. I think this card, to see play, it needs to have synergies with the own deck. So I think you need to play kind of a token Paladin for it to be great. Could see play in control Paladin, but it's not that great of an effect if you don't use the set all other minions attack and have 2/3 yourself, I think. It is a very strong control effect, and seeing as Keeper of Uldaman is rotating out, this is your choice for that effect. That is the one card that will have that effect in standard after rotation. So might be a control Paladin around the corner. It's not Paladin, but it has negative synergies with your own minions then if you're playing a lot of big minions. But a token Paladin, I think it could be quite playable in. So a relatively fine body to play, a 3/7 for 6 with that big effect. I think it's a playable legendary, definitely. I think it will see play. People might build around it, make interesting token druid decks, etc. Not often a curve play though, as it requires a lot of setup. Say against in this meta, Dragon Priest could have problems with that effect, etc. So it can be really good, I think. Could also be a tech card. So it has a lot of potential uses. Definitely an above average legendary, I'd say. Good one for Paladin. I think they need it, as it sees almost no play as it is at the moment. So happy to see Sunkeeper Tarim being quite playable. Cool. Alright, on to the next one. It's a Priest common card. It's a minion, it's a 4 mana 2/6. Totalan Shell Racer, it has Taunt, it also has a Death Rattle, synergizes both with Nesot and also the Priest Quest. The Death Rattle is give a random friendly minion +1/+1. So it's the same Death Rattle as the 1-mana 1/1 card that they printed in Old Gods, which is a very weak Death Rattle, but the idea behind this, I think, them putting Death Rattle on this card is just that it has Death Rattle and it does something. They just put a pretty weak effect there, I think, to not make it too powerful and making the stats block some damage at least. If you look at a card like Infested Tauren, the 4-mana 2/3, it doesn't block much, but the 2/6 it can at least block a few aggressive minions and maybe save you a hassle of facing a big, wide, aggressive board too early. The 4-mana slot is... Priest has a lot of overstated 4-drops already, but with the Death Rattle synergy, synergizes with the Priest Quest. Resubscribe! We'll probably see play. Probably a fine pick in Arena as well. Yeah, if you get the choice, you probably pick this over a lot of other things. It's pretty good minion. Obvious Death Rattle synergies, probably why you play it most of the time. If you're not playing a Death Rattle synergy deck, you can find other things to put in your deck that are more powerful in general, I'd say. We had a resub here, Bixor Pants, 4 months in a row. Thank you for the support, I really appreciate it. Good to have you here, as always. Thank you. Alright, but yeah, a good common. Priest probably need some more after they lose Dragon Synergy, which is a big thing after standard rotation. They lose a lot of dragons. And Priest was the dragon deck now in this metagame. So them getting strong cards for a new deck, as they have a pretty weak base set of cards, I think is a good thing. So good Death Rattle Synergy cards might make Priest playable in the next metagame. And that's a thing I'd like to see. I'd like to see Priest playable again. I think it's a nice class to have in the mix, so to speak. But yeah, on to the next card. It is another Priest minion. It's a rare this time. It's a 1-mana 1/1, just like Swashbuckler and Babbling Book. It's called Crystalline Oracle, and it's a rare. Its effect is a Death Rattle, as well as this last card, Totalan Shell Racer. Totalan Shell Racer, that's quite hard to pronounce. This is also a Death Rattle, and it has the same effect as Shifting Shade. It copies a card from your opponent's deck and adds it to your hand. It's also an elemental, which is pretty notable. It's a 1-mana 1/1 elemental, and the elemental synergies is if you play an elemental a turn, the next turn you can activate elemental synergies, I think it is. So if you play an elemental this turn, next turn elemental synergies are active. So you get to play this turn 1, 2-mana elemental synergy is active, for example. Another Death Rattle for the quest, right? And another Death Rattle for Nesoth, if that's ever a thing you want to play. If you're playing the quest, you're probably playing Nesoth as well. As long as it's not too slow, you could probably get away with not playing Nesoth if there are a lot of aggressive decks. But Nesoth, if the meta slows down a tiny bit, is probably thrown in there instantly. But you don't need to play Nesoth. People might think, oh, you play so many Death Rattles, why not put Nesoth in? But it's still a 10-mana minion that might not be able to be played for a very long time. So if there are not decks like Reno Lock played or Reno Mage, if there are only aggressive decks, you probably can play a Death Rattle Synergy Priest, but putting Nesoth in there would be overkill, I think. They're only aggressive decks, of course. This is super random, and I saw Reina tweet about it. He was quite upset that they just printed the same Shifting Shade and Thought Steal effect on this card as they had before, as it's super random and it doesn't really allow for any counterplay. It's just like, oh, he got my most valuable minion, he copied my Golden Monkey, for example. just a random, or you could have copied like a Cruel Taskmaster, and that would have won me the game if I faced as a control warrior. Like such a huge swing, the low rolls compared to the high rolls on this card. It's just the same, right, as Swashbuckler, Babbling Book. They also have these low and high points, so it's it's nothing new. I mean, there are so many cards like this. It's just not a good excuse to just print it and not like think a lot about it before. Of course, they had a lot of thought put into the card, and there is an effect we've seen in Priest before, so it is easily understandable for new players as well, because there are more cards like this. It's a power level of the card. I think it's definitely played in Death Rattle decks. It's very bad to draw late, as it's so super slow to just play a 1/1. If you're top decking, let's say you have no hand and you have 10 mana, you top deck a 1/1, and it doesn't give you a card instantly, which Swashbuckler and Babbling Book does. You can't play the card that it copies. It has to die first. So the being a Death Rattle is pretty scary, but it's probably seeing play in most Priest's decks, as you want to contest early, and Priest doesn't do that super well already. They had a couple of 1-drops in Dragon Priest now, but I think for Priest having a new 1-drop is pretty nice, as they might not have the Dragon synergies playable, so Twilight Whelp might not see play. Then this can come in and be another 1-drop with the No Shade Cleric. It is, however, quite sad that it's a 1/1, as you can't heal it. It doesn't get any synergy with the hero power. So it's not that great, actually, in Priest having a 1/1. Like, why would you want a 1/1? You can't heal it up. Priest generally wants high health minion that can use the hero power on, get value out of that, but we just kind of hope that it copies something good. We'll see if it sees play. I don't think it's that great. Probably played for Death Rattle synergies. I don't think you'd play this in any Priest deck though, because it's, as I said, it has such low health. That is quite the backside to it, or a low point, seeing as it's a Priest card. I think it could have been better as a Priest card with a higher life total maybe, but then it's harder to trade off, I guess. So, I don't know. Kind of up in the air about it. I'm not so sure. Definitely a good card in Death Rattle synergy decks though. Probably above average value, so I would probably see play anyway, even though it's not that great in stats. It does have great value, however, so definitely playable card. On to the next one. Sorry, I might be babbling on too much about one card. Will take a while to get through them all. This is a Priest Epic card. It's another spell called Shadow Visions, and this is another tutor effect that I talked about before. It's an epic, and it discovers a copy of a spell in your deck. It's not necessarily a tutor, I guess. It's a discover, which is kind of different. So you get the choice of 3 cards, randomly picked from your deck. It can be any card from your... No, it can be a spell from the... It is a spell. Sorry. So if you have, let's say, Shadow or Death, Shadow Word Pain, and Powered Shield, those 3 spells in the deck, and let's say you only play those spells other than the Shadow Visions. If you play Shadow Visions, you will be able to choose from the Shield, the Pain, and the Death, and you can pick one, which is pretty nice in Priest, because Priest spells are super situational, and picking the spell for the situation you're in is extremely valuable, and you don't lower the count. So let's say you pick a Shadow or Death. You still have as many Shadow or Deaths in the deck because you discovered it. It's not, you're not taking it out of the deck. You still have the same amount of cards left. So it's high value every time, because you can pick the target you need, right? So you play it on 5 mana, you can pick a Shadow or Death for a big boy. You can pick a Pain to kill a Totem Golem, for example. Or maybe an Entomb against a Control Warrior. There are a lot of things you can do with this. Also potential plays in OTK Priest with Prophet Velen, picking extra flash heals, and then Emperor Thor sending them could be a potential use of it. That could be really powerful, actually. Having more consistency in OTK Priest could make it could take it over the top, I think. That could be an area where we'd see Priest playable as well. Seeing an OTK version being high tier could be quite interesting. I'm glad to see such a card. It's a high power card, I think. 2 mana. I'd like to see it to be 1 mana actually. I don't know, maybe it's too much of a plague then. The really powerful effect. I like the card. It's a control card, I'd say. It's not something you play for the most part. Maybe OTK decks. It is really slow. It gives you no stats for 2 mana, so you're kind of wasting 2 mana for the effect of choosing. But the spells in Priest are super situational, so the choice might be worth the 2 mana. You might get it back from the tempo you gain from the spell you choose, so probably worth the inclusion in many a Priest deck in the next standard rotation. So powerful spell, really interesting one. I'm glad to see such a card printed. I like to see more like this, like picking cards and drawing specific cards, like the secret draw card in Mage that we saw earlier. So on to the next one. It is a Priest legendary card. It is the Priest Quest. So 1 mana, Awaken the Makers. Every quest card is a 1 mana spell. Haven't talked about the quest cards yet, have I? Quest cards, they are, if you include them in the deck, they automatically appear in your starting hand. So you could, or no, they don't appear in your starting hand, they appear in your mulligan. So you can choose to mulligan it away, throw it, or you can keep it to play it. It takes a slot of a card, so if you keep Awaken the Makers in your hand, sitting like a guy, alright, if you keep it, you won't get another card. It will take up a card slot, so a card that does nothing essentially in the early game can be quite detrimental for the Priest, and then or any other class where you keep the quest card, but you probably keep it in slower matchups and then throw it away against aggressive decks. That's probably how you get around the problem of not having the card early against an aggressive decks. You probably need the card to play, but against control decks you could probably afford to keep it, as they don't put so much pressure on you and don't force you to end the game before they do, right? So the quest is for the Priest here: summon 7 Death Rattle minions, and it rewards Amara, Warden of Hope, or Amara maybe. So after you played 7 Death Rattle minions, you get this card, Amara, Warden of Hope, in your hand. That card is this one. It is Amara, Warden of Hope. It's a 5 mana 8/8, which is insane stats wise. It has Taunt, good against aggressive decks then, and also protecting your face. And the battle cry is set your hero's health to 40. So it's essentially a Reno, but it gives you a higher life total, which is pretty insane. I don't think they've done this before. They have Alexstrasza with kind of the same effect, but it lowers your life total, and this actually raises it from the starting 30. It's a very interesting effect. An anti-combo kind of quest reward. You don't die to freeze mage as easily, and if they start burning you might be able to heal up to 40 again, and they can one-shot you from 40 health. But then they could maybe Alexstrasza you and set your health back down, so I don't know. I think it's like if your health total gets set over 30, I think if you lose 5 health, let's say you're at 35, I think you can heal up again to 40 health. I think that's how it works. Kind of interesting seeing as how Alexstrasza doesn't work like that. Or does it? Maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe you can't heal it up actually. I don't know if that's the case. But yeah. Interesting quest. I don't think there is a lot to say about the quest mechanics. They've shown some build around cards, these two already. So definitely having support for the quest. It's good. As we don't know how powerful it is. Maybe it's just a bad mechanic and can't see play because it's not as powerful as just playing on curb. That might be the case. Or maybe the reward is good enough and everyone will play quests. It will be interesting to see how that balance becomes post-rotation, seeing how much it will be played. I don't know actually how much it will see play. It's a big downside to playing the quest, so They obviously have to balance it so that it's not super OP, or that the quest gives an insane amount of extra value. If it didn't take up a card slot in your starting hand, that would be super nuts, then everyone would play the quest. So I think it's a good balance they have in that it takes up a card slot in the early game to have a potential power spike later. But it is a big downside they have to consider. It's essentially throwing away a card instantly. Starting with a card advantage is a big downside. So we'll have to see how it plays out and if it's worth it. It will be interesting to see though. I'm hoping it will see play. Definitely I think I want to see every quest card played. It's quite tough, but I hope it will be a good mechanic and I will contest the curved stone metagame. To the Golem and Tomb, not gonna be played in standard anymore though. That's true, they are rotating out. I talked about cards that are rotating. Let's say there were examples. Alright, on to the next one. This is the Rogue Legendary Minion. It's a 4-mana 5/3, which is a bit understated. It's called the Sherazin Corpse Flower. So it's a corpse devouring flower. That's quite scary. Card text is Death Rattle, go dormant. And dormant means that it's a minion in play. It takes a minion slot, but it has no life total and no attack power. So it doesn't have any stats and it's unkillable. It isn't able to be removed, so it is there, but it doesn't do anything. And the dormant state has an effect. The effect of the dormant state is if you play 4 cards in a turn, it gets revived, so it becomes another instance of Sherazin Corpse Flower. So after going dormant and dying once in its below average stat state, like it's a 4-mana 5/3, which is quite bad as I said. It dies once, it gets revived if you play 4 cards in a turn, so you might get that double the value of the like a bit below average stats minion, and then it might make up for it the first time you revive it, maybe go even and maybe be an okay played minion so far, and then when you revive it the third time, that's when you really get the value back. And then the third time you get to revive it, it really is a nuts card. I think if you get to revive it twice, I think it's super playable if you are able to build a deck around it and build a deck around reviving it twice. Problem, however, is you need to draw it early in the game, or that goes wasted as you played all your cards already and then you're not able to revive it later in the game. So drawing it late is super bad, just as drawing patches early is bad. So I don't know if it's worth it because you have to draw it early in the game, but it's also like if you draw it later, the game is probably over already. So if you don't draw it early in the game, I don't think it makes a big difference. They're rotating out stealth, the conceal spell for rogue from standard, so you can't stealth an auctioneer anymore, and revive Sherazin in the same turn. Conceal is gone, so you'll have to miracle your way, revive it without conceal, also without coins from Tomb Pillager, as Tomb Pillager also rotates out of standard. So if Miracle Rogue is going to see play, it needs a lot of help, I think, from the new cards. I don't see that being a thing. Maybe it also has some synergies with burgle effects, like what's the card? It's called Burgle, right? 3 mana, take 2 cards from opponent's class, you get more cards to play. So if you burgle 2 cards, you play those and then another one, Sherazin gets revived. So maybe a burgle deck where you steal opponent's cards and get more value out of those, get to play more cards, revive Sherazin more times and get board control back that way, could be a deck. It's quite an interesting one. Don't think Rogue will be too played. It's not really a powerful curve play. I don't think it's that great of a card. It requires a ton of build around and then you might not even draw it. As it's a one-off, it's a legendary. Having legendary as build around cards in general isn't quite powerful. I think it's pretty weak. You don't want to build a whole deck around one legendary and then not draw that one legendary, then the deck is just bad, right? So They probably need to print a lot of cards that work with this legendary to make it good. And I hope that will be the case. I hope they will print common, rare, and epic cards that make sense for Rogue and playing this card in it. As Death Rattle, so Nesoth is a thing. Reviving several Shadow Sins could be quite cool, but then you need enough cards to revive it as well for the effect to be even a thing. If you don't have 4 cards in your hand, the Death Rattle doesn't do anything. So yeah, maybe if it was 3 cards it would be more playable. Like I can imagine endgame scenarios where I don't ever have 4 cards. Like after turn like 5, it's pretty uncommon in Hearthstone that you have 4 cards in hand if you're not playing a super control deck like Rhinolock. So it's a tough mechanic to activate. Definitely need some love from the other cards. This is the dormant state. I actually have the token here. It looks like this. It has no power and no health. You can't interact with this. This card is in play after he dies. It's the Death Rattle effect. And then if you play 4 cards in a turn, it gets revived and goes back to this state, having power and health again. Quite a cool effect. Hopefully they will build around it, as I said. Don't think the legendary is super powerful. Maybe would have liked it to see a bit stronger in itself, but it would be interesting to see more Rogue cards. That will be coming in the next review. Yeah, as I said, tough to state an opinion with having as little cards revealed as we have right now. On to the next one though. It's a Shaman card. It's a 5-mana spell called Volcano. It's a rare one. Deals 15 damage, randomly split among all minions, and it has 2 overload. So it essentially costs 7 mana. Dealing 15 damage, split among all minions. A really powerful effect against, let's say, an aggressive deck. Doesn't interact well against Imp Gang boss, but if you're facing an aggressive pirate warrior, for example, they don't have that much health in play, but the minions they have in play are very high priority targets. So if you get to Volcano against the pirate warrior, for example, I think it's quite a powerful effect. But if you're volcanoing against a deck that plays a lot for board and plays a lot of health in board, it can be, if it doesn't clear the whole board, it's pretty underwhelming effect. Generally 15 damage is quite a lot though. It will clear most boards. You can't have much in play yourself though, as you obviously kill your own minions with it. It's not like the overload synergizes well with Tunnel Trog because it kills it. Tunnel Trog is also rotating though, so that's not really a thing. Interesting card for a control type of Shaman. Not really playable in a mid-range or aggressive deck as it kills your own minions. But in a control type Shaman, could definitely be an interesting card. Pretty small portion of overload. Might have wanted to see a bit more overload, like overload 4, 3 mana, like the, what's it called? 3 mana AoE that's played now. Elemental Destruction, right? Yeah. That is 45 damage. I think this is better than Elemental Destruction, though. The effect is stronger, I'd say, than Elemental Destruction. Let's say your opponent plays... It's more flexible. Let's say your opponent plays Aggro Shaman and they play 4 mana 7/7. Then you can Volcano it the following turn as it kills the 7/7 and maybe the Thunder Trog that's besides it. It's 10 to those. And that could be really strong. You could also trade into his board with your minions and then Volcano to clear a higher health board. So it can see use with having minions in play. You just have to trade first to make it stronger, right? That could be quite interesting. It's kind of a niche thing, right? It's fun to... It's a new way to clear the board, which is nice to see, I think. Them thinking and just not being like... deal 6 to 7 damage, 10 mana overload 5, right? Not the bigger Elemental Destruction, which I think is a good change. Don't want to see the same card printed again and again. You want a new flavor when there's a new standard rotation. So I like this card. It's an interesting effect, and it's definitely going to be fun to see it in play. Not going to be fun to get Volcano turn 5 if you're playing an aggressive deck, but very interesting for the potential control Shaman in the future. think it might make Control Shaman quite powerful. It's a strong board clear effect, and it's Control Shaman, you tend to hero power a lot in the early game, which stalls the game, and then Volcano can sweep in. They trade into your totems with totem turn 2, 3, 4. You could just hero power pass, they have to trade with the totems, and then bam, you Volcano turn 5, and then you can get back the turn after with like a Feral Spirits or something contesting his minion, and fighting on an even level after Volcanoing and getting a lot of value out of this card. So that could be a cool thing to do. I like the card. I think it will see play. I think it's a pretty strong one. Probably not that strong in Arena. Or maybe it is actually. As I said before, you can trade your minions and then Volcano. You don't get out ahead though, so getting out ahead is a very key thing in Hearthstone. You want to get out ahead so that you can have an advantage after clearing the board. If you're just twisting Nether Pass, for example, in a Arena lock, your opponent can just develop minions again and then you lose. As you need another board clear and then another board clear because you just play their cards. You don't want to pass priority most of the time. But if they are super ahead, this is a very good board clear. But having it later in the game, they might have more than 15 health in play, so then it might not be strong enough. But then you could maybe Lightning Storm plus Volcano as a board clear to sweep up the remaining minions. So interesting, good card. I think it's playable. It might see play in Arena. A new effect, so it's hard to evaluate new effects. Definitely an interesting one. On to the next one, we have a 7-mana Shaman minion. It's an epic. It's called Stone Sentinel. It's very understated. This is 7-mana 4/4. It has the elemental tag, so it is an elemental. And the text on the card is a battle cry. If you played an elemental last turn, summon 2/3 elementals with taunt. So it's Doctor Stone Sentinel. Bringing back the Doctor theme with a minion in the middle and then 2 smaller minions on the sides. Doctor 7 back in standard maybe? I don't know. It's pretty strong. It's more stats than you want for 7. 7 drop, you probably want like an 8/8 vanilla. This is 8/9. It also has 2 split taunts. It's like a 4/4 with Feral Spirits, which is pretty nice. Feral Spirits though later in the game are quite weak. They die to Hellfire, they die to Abyssal, so having Feral Spirits of stats is not very great as they die to 3 damage clears, which is quite common. That's the sad part about it, but you can play 2 of these Stone Sentinels, so if you play a Stone Sentinel, you can follow it up with another Stone Sentinel. It's a very powerful board play. Split taunts are very powerful against, let's say, Pirate Warrior. Having Feral Spirits number 3 and 4 against Pirates, for example, is pretty crazy. The good thing about it is that you don't need to have a board. You could play an elemental the last turn. He could have killed that elemental and you still get the elemental synergy. It's not like there are some pirate synergy cards, let's say in Rogue. There's a 3-mana 4/3. I think it's called Shady Dealer. Maybe not, but you need a pirate in play for it to be active to get the +1/+1 for the pirate synergy. But this elemental and new synergy that I came up with doesn't require you to have the elemental in play, which I think is a very good thing. You just need to have had an elemental. It's kind of like the dragon theme, but you can actually play your minions on curve. So I think this is a stronger synergy than the dragon synergy, because you never need to keep an elemental behind to, let's say, activate Stone Sentinel. I think that's a very, very cool thing they came up with, and it fits the Hearthstone playstyle more, because you can play minions. You have a 6-mana elemental, you play turn 6, you don't have elementals left in hand, but that's fine because you can play the Stone Sentinel and it's active next turn. So that's quite cool. I like the new elemental theme. And I think the Feral Spirits and the taunts against a non-control deck, it's a very powerful card. It's a very, very powerful card. I think it's a bit underwhelming against control decks though, because it's quite easily swept up if they have a board clear. But against more aggressive to mid-range deck, I think the Stone Sentinel will be an amazing card. Also in the theme of Volcano, more control-y type Shaman, it's higher mana cost with the taunt keyword, so it's a defensive thing as well. Could be played in more aggressive Shaman, but then it's 7 mana, so it's very late in the game. Doesn't kill your opponent very quickly, so later game, Shaman card, good to see. No more Tunnel Trogs, thank the Lord. Glad to see strong later game cards rather than sooner. Shaman is the class with the most elementals as well. Blizzard made some elementals from earlier elementals like Magma Rager. I think is a card that they put the elemental tag on. Also Ragnaros won't be standard though. And some other Shaman cards that will also have the elemental card. I think Shaman has the most elementals as class cards. There's the 3 mana 2/4 elemental that gets Overload synergy. That has elemental tag now, so they put elemental on a few more Shaman cards. So elemental Shaman might be a playable deck after rotation. Cool card, glad to see, very powerful. Maybe not an arena card, as you need elemental synergy. But Rock Elemental, here is the 2/3 in the Feral Spirit elemental guy. Pretty cool art. Damn. Some Schlang and Magma in the chest there. Had a bad day, maybe a bit of... What's it called? Shit. Was kind of making a joke, but fell through. Never luck. On to the next card. We're quite excited about the slower Shaman cards. Warlock, it's a Warlock minion. It's a vanilla, or like a common 4 mana 3/8. High stats, it's a demon. Demon synergies with Krul. The Unshackled, the Warlock legendary they got in Min Streets. The text on it has taunt. The battle cry discards 2 random cards. So it's the Doomguard battle cry, but it has taunt and not charge. Discarding 2 cards, like you put 3 cards into having a 3/8 in play, it's pure value. Or not pure value, I mean the opposite, pure tempo. If you have a Malkazar Simp in play, this is an insane card. There might be a thing like playing it in a slower Warlock where you play Malkazar Simp turn 5 and then Lakari Fellhound. If you play that in a slower Warlock deck, that might be a powerful play. I think I'd like to see it have maybe even more stats. Compare this Lakari Fellhound to Doomguard. I think Doomguard is... You get more for your mana than you get for the Lakari Fellhound. I think it's playable. It's still a strong card. Like Doomguard is super strong. I think Lakari Fellhound is a bit below that power level, but it's still a very strong card. It's a very defensive card. Taunt and 3/8. I don't think you want to really play this in Zoo type decks, but rather in a slower Warlock deck. Maybe there is a discard control-y type Warlock waiting to happen, or maybe there's a discard mid-range type Warlock, like we had in the Dr. Boom era, or even before that when we played Mal'Ganis in Zoo. Having the mid-range Zoolock being meta was quite awesome. I think Zoolock is a very fun playstyle. And I'd like to see a bit slower of a Zoolock being playable in the standard as well. That would be a metagame I look forward to. So excited to see a defensive discard synergy card printed. You don't have to go face all the time. It does protect things like Knife Juggler against, say, Druid Hero Power and such. So can defend the Zoo board. It's a pretty powerful Zoo minion as well, if you want to play it like that. Could also put up a 3/8 minion against the Pirate Warrior, for example. Stop an Arcanite Reaper twice, or maybe kill 2 Korkron Elites. You get the value for discarding the cards back then if you play it on curve against Pirate Warrior. So it also has synergies. They printed the legendary that we'll get to. I don't know that it's later, but there is a legendary that makes the discard not as painful. There are some more synergies they printed with that, so I think this will definitely see play in the new standard. And I don't know how good it is in Arena though. You look for value a lot in Arena, so it might not be super playable in Arena because you discard 2 cards, then you instantly lose the value game, and then if they have a spot removal, you just lose the game instantly because you discarded 2 cards in Arena. It's a very big downside, so don't know if it's a great Arena card. However, it's a great constructed card because you can build around the discard synergies. So cool card. Cruel Demon Warlock might be a thing. Maybe a mid-range Demon Zoo type thing, with Cruel as the new Mal'Ganis in mid-range type Zoolock. That could be really cool. You can have 2 of these bad boys if you play a Warlock deck, because it's common, and that's pretty nice. Glad to see this printed. On to the next one. I have the Lakari Sacrifice. It's the 1-mana legendary quest for Warlock. So this is the Warlock quest. The quest is discard 6 cards, and if you discard 6 cards, you get rewarded with Nether Portal. This is also a new card. As you can see here, Nether Portal is a 5-mana spell. It opens a permanent portal that summons 3/2 imps, and that is in plural. It summons 2 imps at the end of each turn, I think. It is a portal, so it's the same as the rogue legendary Sharazin. When it goes dormant in this state, it's not able to be interacted with. It's just a portal that is in play, and it's invulnerable, so it cannot die. And it summons 3/2 flame imps every turn. It doesn't damage you, of course, it just gives you the 3/2 imps. So you have an infinite stream of 3/2 demons that come into play every turn. It is a very slow effect, seeing as you need to complete the quest of discarding 6 cards before you get the Nether Portal. And at that point your opponent is playing, let's say, maybe like an 8/8 or like a slower card, right? If you get 2 3/2s at the end of turn, you don't get to attack with them instantly, you don't get to choose what to trade in with. It's an extremely slow reward, and it doesn't give you a heal. Reno is not playable in work any longer. I think it's too slow to be played in Zoo Warlock. I don't think this quest is very good. It is super slow. It wins an infinite value game, but then Jade Idol does that better because it gives you more stats every turn, and you draw a Jade Idol every turn, and then you play like a 12/12, and then you have 2/3/2 imps. Oh, he has a 12/12. What can I do against a 12/12 with 2/3/2 imps? Nothing, right? And you don't even get to trade instantly. So it's 12/12 go face, and you're probably low enough that you die because you've life tapped a lot, you discarded cards. You can't support this very well if you don't get it super early. So you can maybe high roll the quest. It depends on, I don't know how early you can actually get the reward, as you need to discard a whole lot of cards. So let's say you have a hand size of 3 cards. You play the Lakari Fellhound. So you discarded 2 cards. You play the Fellhound. You have no hand. Then next turn you draw a card. And then you have to tap. So you have 2 cards in hand. Then you can play a card and discard the other. Then you discarded 3 cards in total. Okay? So after playing the Lakari Fellhound, discarding 2 cards, you can at most discard 1 card per turn. So extremely slow quest to finish. As you, like, discarding 6 cards is not a small task. That takes a whole lot of effort and a lot of cards. You need to play at least 12 cards, right? The discarded cards, and then also the card you play to discard them, or maybe 9 cards if you play like 2 Lakari Fellhounds and 2 Doom Guards, right? So you need to play a lot of cards. You get to the later turns before you finish Lakari Sacrifice. Lakari Sacrifice is a quest, so it also requires a card slot in the starting hand. You start with a smaller hand size, and you need to discard a lot of cards. It's not an easy quest to finish, is what I'm trying to say, and I think the reward is not powerful enough. I don't think it gives you a lot of value, but after going that late in the game, you probably need tempo, you need the big effect to finish. Having Nether Portal being infinite value when you life tap the whole game, maybe you're even close to fatigue.
Thanks for the follow.
I don't think it's good enough. Sadly, I don't think it's great effect to get. But you might have enough discard synergies. There is also a new Warlock Legendary, the Legendary Warlock Minion. that they printed we haven't seen yet, so that also helps the quest. But it is a slow one. I'm rating it quite low, but I might be completely wrong though. Of course, as always, it is before we've seen it in play rating, so it might be good enough, but I'm saying it's not going to see that much play now. I think this is one of the weaker quests we've seen. Next card, it's the Warlock Legendary Minion. It's Clutch Master Zavas, or Clutch Mother, not Master. This is Clutch Mother Zavas. It's a 2-mana 2/2 beast, so it has that Curator synergy. The card text is, whenever you discard this, give it +2/+2 and return it to hand. So it does tie into the Warlock quest. It does tie into the Lakari Fellhound. It gives you more synergy there. And as I said before, the problem with the quest is not having enough cards in hand to discard to finish the quest, because the quest takes up a card slot. So this legendary minion, I think in the discard deck in the new standard metagame will be very important to draw early to support your discards. If you don't draw Clutch Master Zavas early, I think it will be very tough to finish the quest in a timely manner, because you won't have enough cards to discard. But if you have the Clutch Mother early, you can discard it several times and you get it back, which counteracts the discard, throwing away cards for nothing. You get something back every time. Having the card back after discarding it, I think is the more powerful text of the card, rather than giving it +2/+2. That doesn't matter as much. If you get it back as a 2/2, I'd rather have that than not getting it back and being a +2 instead. I don't think that works at all, but let's say theoretically. I'm just saying that getting the card back after discarding is a huge deal. You don't get Silver Golem back, for example. If you Soulfire Silver Golem and you get it back to hand, that would be a nice thing, because then you can discard it again and get it back another time. You throw this Clutch Mother Zavas, and if you have a Malkersars in play, you get to draw a card and then you get the Clutch Mother back. So you end up with 2 cards instead of 1, which is quite cool. Good discard synergy. Might put the quest deck over the edge to make it playable. I think without this card it will be tough to finish the Warlock quest, and you also need to draw this early in the game for the quest to be to be finishable in a timely manner. You can make it more frequent in your hand by playing Curator, but I don't think that will be a factor. I don't think the Beast tag will do anything. Curator in Warlock, I don't think is a card you want to play, as you have life tap. You will draw cards anyway with the hero power. So I don't see the Beast tag as doing anything at the moment. Curator is not really a Warlock playable card, I don't think so. Kind of interesting that they put a Beast on there. I guess it's an insect. So interesting card. Glad that they printed more discard synergies, because I think for the quest to be a thing, they need it. Otherwise the quest won't see play, but they might be pushing it over the edge. It is a very powerful card, so it might be super powerful to play this card lock post-rotation. And you can play this bad, I was about to say bad boy, but I guess bad girl, without playing the Warlock quest, and that might be even better. Having another card in hand in the early game, rather than playing the quest. You might just want to play an aggressive Warlock with this powerful card. Hopefully you draw it early in the game. Kind of high rolly, but it's just about everything, I guess. You need to draw them to play them, obviously. Yeah, it is a cool card. A new idea. I like getting it back after you discard it. It's a good one. I think the +2/+2 is an okay effect. It's less powerful discard synergy than Silver Golem, because you get 3/3 power in play, but you can do this several times. Getting it back is a big deal. I like the card. I think it will definitely see play in Warlock. On to the next one. It's a Warrior Spell. This is the meme card of the expansion, apparently, as the developer said. I think it can be playable outside of memes, but yeah, it's a 2-mana epic spell for warriors. It's called Explore Angoro. And the card text says, replace your deck with copies of Discover a card, which is a 1-mana spell. So if you play Explore Angoro, your whole deck becomes a Discover a card. the 1 mana spell. So as someone said in the developer Q&A, I think it was, or was that with the reveal? Oh, that was the reveal with day 9, I think. You play this, you get a 1 mana discover card if you have an auctioneer in play. That has a bunch of synergy. You can play 1 mana spells and draw your whole deck, basically. I don't know if you want to do that, though, because if you want to discover a card every turn, you probably play for the late game, and then you don't want to go into fatigue either, so that's not really a thing, I don't think. Might be a Control Warrior card, quite interestingly. If you play a Control Warrior, go 1 for 1 in the early game, armor up a lot, play defensively, get to, let's say, 8 or 9 mana, and then playing Explore and Goro, you can discover late game cards every turn and playing a big threat every time. Because discovering a card, it's pretty possible you will get a high mana card out of the 3 options from the discover, right? So you could just play a Control Warrior with 2 copies of Explore and Gore in it. It might even, I see it as maybe playable as a real card. The discover effect is so powerful, I think it can actually be a card that you want to play in a Control Warrior type. And the threats that you get from the discover effect might rival, let's say you discover an Isera turn and then you might discover like an 8-drop the next. It might even rival a Jade Druid with not, of course, not too fast of a draw, but if you're facing a Jade Druid, you could play this turn 2 and then maybe discovering a curve and playing more like a Zoo Warlock if you face the matchup that you need it in, where you can't play the classic Control Warrior type style. If you're facing an aggressive deck, you can go 1 for 1 and exhausting the opponent of cards and then playing Explore and Gore to get the threats that end the game. Instead of having like 3 weapons in hand, you can play Explore and Gore, make them discover a card, and then getting minions so that you can actually put some pressure on the opponent's side. I don't think the card is too weak. I think it's a pretty interesting Control Warrior card, and it might actually make Control Warrior a thing. I might be stretching a bit, but I see the card as playable, and I think it's a very interesting effect. I like that it's the Discover card. It's not just like a get the random card. That would be much less interesting in my opinion. It might actually put it over the edge. Might be playable. I will definitely try it out, and we'll see if it's a card that will appear in the metagame. I hope it is, because I think it's a very cool card. I might get sick of it though, kind of like playing against Renounced Warlock, which or maybe Yogg. That kind of sucks. It's not the same thing though. It's kind of like Elise in the late game, right? You get random legendaries, and I don't have a problem with Elise, because when you get there, the game has already played out so much that the win condition being RNG is quite a small fraction of the games anyway. And having it played, like you can play turn 2 against like let's say a Jade deck to maybe get the game plan or puzzle together a game plan where you can actually win against Jade deck sometimes. Control Warriors now never win against Jade Druid, for example. This card might make Control Warrior win against the unwinnable matchup sometimes, which I think is a very valuable thing to have in a Control Warrior deck. Like the choice of playing it is a big deal. Very cool card. I really liked it. Even though it's kind of a meme card, it's probably a late game one, and I think that's a good thing. Glad to see it printed anyway. Some people are not. I don't know if I'm a minority in wanting to see it in play. We'll see though. On to the next one. It's a neutral card. We're on to the neutrals now. We're done with the class cards. This is a 1 mana 1/2. It's called a Firefly. It's a common minion. It's an elemental. Card text is Battlecry. Add a 1/2 elemental to your hand. So you get another 1/2 elemental, but it doesn't have the text Battlecry. Add a 1/2 elemental to your hand. It's just a 1/2 elemental without the Battlecry effect you get to your hand. It's the same. We saw it earlier actually. Besides the Flame Geyser. Or Flame Geyser. Jeez. This is the 1/2 elemental you get back to your hand. It doesn't have a card text. So it's not like you can get infinite elementals. So it gives you a guy. It's kind of like, let's say, Echoing Ooze. It's the 2 mana, 2 1/2s, but you don't get to buff it, and then it gets the target buff on the other copy. You can play board wide buffs, for example. If you play Firefly turn 1 and then you play the other one turn 2, you have 1 mana over, so you can play the Lotus +1 bluff in Druid, for example. Then you have 2/2/3s. That could be a thing. Synergize with board wide buff. It's an elemental that you can play 2. You can play 2 elementals with this, so you activate elemental synergies twice. That might be an area where it might see play. Very slow tempo, 1 mana 1/2, not playable. You can play twice. It costs you 2 mana though, so not an arena card really. Where it might see play is maybe a token deck like Token Druid with some board wide buffs, and maybe some elemental synergies decks. That's where it might see play, but a very below average power minion, low value, low tempo. It's like it doesn't do anything great except for having the elemental tag. Like that's what it does, that's what it provides, and that's about it though. So yeah, it's a card. It does contest early game. Might be a card you want to contest early game with if you're playing a slower elemental deck, maybe. To contest like a Pirate Warrior board, or maybe an Aggro Shaman. You can play this turn 1 and turn 2 to have 2 threats. Probably just want a more powerful 1 or 2 drop instead of having this. So yeah, not very great. I think it's just the elemental tag that's interesting there. If they print like an elemental captain, let's say it buffs all your elementals in play, then definitely an interesting card. We'll see in the future. Probably need to get some more elemental synergies revealed for this to be playable at all. But we'll see. They might print some powerful elementals in the future. Oh, they have the token again there. On to the next one. This is the next neutral minion. It's a Tar Creeper. It's another common minion. It's a 3 mana 1/5 with taunt. It also has the elemental tag, so this is another elemental. And the card text is, has +2 attack during your opponent's turn. So when your opponent is playing, this is a 3/5, just like a Sen'jin Shieldmaster. It also has taunt, just like Sen'jin. It is the same stats. It is 1 mana less, so you get it out the turn earlier, which is a very big deal against aggressive decks. And it doesn't attack for much, so it's not an aggressive minion at all. It's probably there to see play in slower decks, like control decks. Might see play in Zoo to protect your minions. If you play a bit slower for an aggressive deck, like not Pirate Warrior, if you're playing like Zoo Warlock, this might protect your Councilman against other aggressive decks that play for board. If you play Tar Creeper against a Pirate Warrior as a Zoo Warlock, you're very happy. But if you have a Tar Creeper against a control deck, like Rhinolock, for example, you're not very happy to play this as a Zoo Warlock. So maybe not. Maybe it is playable in Zoo Warlock, actually. If you like Direwolf Alpha, besides, it's pretty powerful anyway. Having 5 health in a 3-drop. Like, it's the same stat as Councilman when you play it, right? And you can also buff it up with maybe Defender Vargus, then it gets the power as to where it can trade into something. You can kill totems, maybe a Direwolf Alpha if you're in a Zoo mirror. This might be a Zoo playable card, which is quite interesting, but obviously main purpose being played in control decks. So like being more or having more cards that are playable in control decks and shit on aggro decks. It's a good thing. Another elemental synergy card, making the later game shaman more playable maybe, as it stops aggro quite a bit with a 5 health turn 3. I think it's a good card. Happy to see that printed as well. Alright, on to the next one. It is another neutral card. It's 2 mana, 2/3, and it's a beast. It's not an elemental this time. It's Golakka Crawler. It's another crab, and it's a hate crab, as they say in Magic the Gathering. Hate cards are targeted cards that target specific decks, and this targets pirates because it has the effect. It's a battle cry. It destroys a pirate and gains +1/+1. So if you kill a pirate with this crab, you play a 2 mana 3/4, which is a totem golem in stats, but without the overload. It also has the beast tag, so it synergizes with hunter things. It can be a hunter card fighting for the early game. I think the fact that this gets printed will make Pirate less played, which I'm glad about. I'm really glad that Pirates will get a bit less of a spotlight in the metagame. I think they had too much of the spotlight, the metagame that has been, and I am excited to see this getting played ASAP. Or maybe not even getting played, but being there and being a card that you can put in your deck might make Pirate less played. And then again, if Pirate gets popular, you can just put Golakka Crawler in your deck, and that if you draw it, you can kill a Pirate and play a powerful minion over stat for 2 mana, which is nice. Contesting the Pirate early game. You can even kill a Pirate Captain or a 3-4 Pirate, maybe leave in a Naga Corsair, killing a 5-4 with a 2 mana card and playing a minion. That's pretty goddamn powerful. There are Pirates up to like, even there are 7 mana Pirates that you can kill. Nobody plays that card anyway, I guess. So. But yeah, glad to see printed. God damn it. Glad to see it printed. Pirates need to be less played, and this probably provides that for the metagame, which is nice. Yeah, overall, pretty powerful effect. Not really an arena card. 2 mana 2/3, not great. Maybe if you have some beast synergies, maybe in playing Hunter or so, it can be played even if Pirates are not very played in the metagame. I don't think you want to play this if you're not playing a beast deck, actually. Maybe as a one-off in a control deck if there's a ton of Pirates, but I don't think it's very likely to be a ton of Pirates. Yeah, problem with the card is that it's not, you don't want to put this in a rogue, for example, even though you are weak to Pirates as a rogue. It's not really a stat line where it's playable in rogue. A 2-drop in rogue is really, like, you don't want 2-drops in rogue in general. Did you play Magic the Gathering? Yes, I did. I played Magic. Yeah, still cool card. Glad to see printed. On to the next one. Oh, a 4 mana 5/4. This is quite. Oh, I think this got leaked. They didn't reveal this card yet, but this just got leaked. I don't know if is this actually a card. Has Blizzard confirmed that this is a card, or did people just assume that this is a card? I guess this is a card as it's on the Reddit reveal forum. They probably have checked it out. I don't know. So I guess we'll review it. It's a Gentle Megasaur. It's a 4 mana 5/4, just as the other adapt mechanic card, the Verdant Longneck. It's the same stats, same mana cost. It's another beast, and it's a neutral minion as well. It's an epic, and the card text is battle cry, adapt your Murlocs. And at first I was like, what the fuck, that seems like a joke card, because it adapts your Murlocs, and like, what do I use this for? Why do I want to adapt my Murlocs? And it's like, I don't know. It's so weird. You can adapt Finja to have Wind Fury. That's kind of a cool thing though. Adapting Finja with Wind Fury, that's kind of fucked up actually. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Finja rogue-ish. You do tend to draw Murlocs without Finja sometimes and just adapting them up. 4 mana 5/4. It is 4 mana. Whoa, it's 1 mana less than the other one, by the way. I thought it was 5 mana, but it's not. No, it's 4 mana 5/4. So it's 2 villager stats. I mean, it's like a leader effect in Murloc Shaman as well. Board wide buff for the Murlocs. I don't really know what to say about it. It's just I'm confused. It's a new mechanic, and for Murlocs, and it's a beast. A Murloc beast, that's actually curator tags. Maybe in a curator something, it could be a thing, buffing up Murlocs if you play Finja and a lot of Murlocs. Maybe. If after you curator, you get this from the curator as the beast, and having a lot of Murlocs in the deck and adapting them could be a cool thing, I guess. Putting Divine Shield on your Murloc War Leader. How would this work though? Adapt your Murlocs for every Murloc? Like, what do you discover? How does it show you which one you adapt for? Like this sounds like an effect that Blizzard wouldn't put in the game. Like it seems weird to me that this is a card. The text is very vague and it doesn't really make sense to me. They haven't officially revealed it yet, so I'm just kind of looking at this and like, will this even be in the next expansion? I don't know. Murloc Shaman will be insane. Yeah, with Curator as well, right? This is a beast that you draw. Yeah, it's several adapts. It is a very powerful effect, definitely. If you have the Murlocs in play for it, it will be quite a powerful card. So probably seeing play if Curator is as good as it has been. It has been great in this metagame so far. Curator Rogue, for example, came up as a contender for tier 1. Unseen before, Curator Rogue. Now it's a thing, so maybe that will be a thing in the future as well. Curator Rogue with adapting Murlocs. I don't know. On to the next one. It's a 5-mana 5/5. It's a neutral legendary, first one. Elise the Trailblazers. It's another Elise, and it has the card text, a battle cry, shuffle an unsealed Angoro pack into your deck. And the Angoro pack is this card, Angoro pack, obviously. It's a 2-mana spell. When you play it, it adds 5 Journey to Angoro cards to your hand. Blizzard said that it will be above average, the card quality that you get from this pack, so it's not like opening a normal pack. You will get more legendaries than you would otherwise. I think I remember them saying it's about 50% that you get a legendary. Or...
Come in and type in the chat some good karma.
Hey, Chai, you nice host. Thank you for the host, man. I really appreciate it. Jesus, doing a card review here. Jesus, it's so loud. Thank you so much for the host. I really do appreciate it. And welcome to my Journey to Angoro card review. Yeah, let's continue on. Elise the Trailblazer. The card pack that you get from it, will give you, I think, a lot of legendaries compared to a normal pack, and above average cards. I think at least an epic will be in the Angoro pack you open with this spell here. Gives you a lot of value if you find the pack. You can open the card pack and then have a lot of value in the late game. You can't Elise it in standard because the old Elise rotates out, but if that was in the metagame, you could make them to legendaries randomly. I guess that's not really a benefit, maybe in the late game, but random legendary is quite low power generally. I guess commons are very low power as well. It might be pretty underwhelming what you discover. Let's see though. Oh yeah, if you have Malkazar as well, you will get a lot of cards. This puts Angoro pack into your deck and doesn't draw a card, so it makes your deck essentially 31 cards. Plays well into Fatigue, gives you another draw until your deck is out of cards. So a good Fatigue deck card to play. It's a 5-mana 5/5, contests the board fine. It's lower stats than Malkazar, but it doesn't dilute your deck with cards you might not want to play in the early game. And having this on curve in, let's say, like a Control Warrior will probably be fine. I don't know if Control Warrior will ever be a thing again in this metagame with Jade Druid and such, but I mean, core part of the meta isn't Jade Druid. There's a lot of Pyro Warrior and such, so Control Warrior might have a better chance with that. The Elise, and discovering random cards, you might discover a good threat against the Jade Druid. Or so I don't know why you would need another drawing Fatigue though in Control Warrior. Like, I don't think Elise is play in this metagame even. You just don't play her because you never go to Fatigue anyway. Because everyone plays Pirate Warrior and Arena Lock, the game ends before Fatigue, so Elise doesn't really do anything most of the time. I think Deathwing is just a better late game mechanic than Elise's. It has more impact, plays, and maybe kills like a Jade Druid sometimes if you Deathwing. You can hit them in the face for a lot of damage. Might be the case with this as well. Maybe you just want to play Deathwing instead of at least the Trailblazer to have an endgame win condition. Maybe you want to play both. I don't know. Having more cards to play before you end up having no cards left. Maybe a powerful effect. It's a very interesting card though, like opening a pack in a game. It's pretty exciting, seeing what you get. Like you want to open the pack. I think this is a pretty great card. And like the game is about having fun, right? And opening a card pack, it's always fun. It's never like a hassle for anyone, pretty much, except for like Kriparian has opened bazillion packs already. But other than him, I guess pretty much everyone is excited about the opening card packs, and it's a great legendary to get as a free-to-play player. Let's say if you get this early, you can play this and discovering every Angora card, opening a card pack, a new card pack every game. It's quite cool. Cool mechanic. I like the card. Hope that it will see play. Hope that it will be powerful enough. Maybe wanted it to be a 5-mana 5/6, just like Prince Malkazar. Sad it's not. Want it to be a bit better vanilla, so that it actually contests the board, and then making the pack reward, like just having it in play as a 6-out minion would make the card, of course, a bit higher win rate. Would make fatigue playing decks a bit better, having a bit more instant impact. And I do like longer games in Hearthstone, so I would like to see this have more stats. Sad that it doesn't have 6 health, but you know, you can't get everything in life. Maybe it would be too good then. You never know. Maybe you want to play this with in Rogue. Maybe you want to play this with Sherazin to revive it. You get 5 cards from the pack. Let's see, where is he? The flower, corpse flower. You can play 4 cards in a turn to revive this minion. You get 5 cards from the pack. Pack is 2 mana. Maybe you get to revive Sherazin when you draw the Elise pack. That could be kinda nice. Maybe it's a Rogue card. Who knows? We've only seen the last Elise played in Warrior. Maybe it gets to see play in other classes. Opening a pack and getting 5 random cards in your hand and like having the access to them instantly, upping your hand size, is like drawing 5 cards but not like making your deck smaller. It's pretty nice. Having a lot of card advantage, and then you're also forcing your opponent to draw more if they want to play for like a fatigue game plan. If you have 5 cards more in your hand, they have to draw answers to those cards. And then if they're already in fatigue, you're just like, it's essentially playing a 36 card deck. It's like a good Prince Malkazar. You don't need the shit legendaries to draw like a Nostormu turn 2. Or you're like, oh shit, I drew a Nostormu, what do? I'm against an aggressive deck. If you play Elise, it's not like you draw the card pack early and get random shit cards. You save it for the late game, and it's a small pack. They can play whenever you want. Really cool card. A better card than Prince Malkazar, like by miles. I think it's a better way to make a fatigue mechanic more playable. Prince Malkazar was just a bad shot at it, I think, by Blizzard. Maybe they tested the waters a bit. Of course, like a kind of a meme card, but this is less so. More powerful one, and seeing it play for fatigue is a good thing. I think I like that in general. Let's go to the next one. This is the last card that has been revealed for now. It's a 9-mana 5/5. It's called Osruk. It's also a legendary. It has Taunt, and the effect is a battle cry. It gains +5 health for each elemental you played last turn. So it has the elemental theme as to where you play an elemental the last turn, and the next turn you can play Osruk and get all the benefits from playing the elemental the last turn. You don't need to hold them in hand as the dragons or so. Again, I think that's a very good way to make a synergy with the theme.
Thanks for the follow.
Elemental synergy, I think is really cool. Yes, the elemental tag. It's not like, let's say, Wild Walker for beasts now. It's a beast scenery card, but it doesn't have the beast tag. That can make it pretty weak, because you can play all your elementals, then play Osruk, then top deck another elemental scenery card, and then you played Osruk the last turn, which is also an elemental. I think that's kind of a nice thing, right? Like, you want your synergy cards to also have synergies, so that you can continue on the same theme and build a deck around that, not having a big elemental play holds, like playing Osruk. not being an elemental would be a big downside, but it also being an elemental, I think this can actually see a lot of play. It's a 9 mana card, which in general doesn't see very much play, but if you plop this bad boy down against an aggressive deck that doesn't have hard removal, you just win the game, right? Like, let's say you play 2 elementals turn 8, you Ostrok turn 9, that's the game. They don't get through it. Facing an Arcanite Reaper upgraded twice, doesn't matter. You have 5/15 taunt guy in play, like a big dummy, just blocks the way. Against a slower deck though, I mean, if they exhausted their hexes and siphon souls and all there is, of course, plopping down a 15-20 health elemental is pretty powerful, but if they didn't, it's pretty underwhelming, right? Obviously, anything is very underwhelming if it gets removed, and the shot that it might not get removed is a big thing, but if you play 1 elemental, it is pretty underpowered, because a 5/10 is just like, it's worse stated than Isera, and it doesn't have an additional effect then, so you need to play at least 2 elementals for this card to even like be playable, and then you need it not to get instantly removed, because then you use 9 mana to like trade 1 for 1, which is pretty lame, and then the opponent has a tempo lead. It's kind of like playing Isera. Let's say it gets sapped against Rogue, you already wasted all your elementals. So if there is this is kind of like playing an Ancient of War, I think, but it's an elemental specific card. Ancient of War sees a lot of play right now because Pirate Warrior is the main villain of the metagame, doesn't have a hard removal like Hex or so. That's a big thing. If Ostruk is going to see play, it needs to be a metagame like this, where obviously you don't want to play this in a Pirate Warrior metagame as it's 9 mana, it's super late. But if it's a metagame where there's not a lot of Shaman, then this card might see a lot of play, but otherwise, paying 9 mana for pretty mediocre effect, I think it's pretty lame. I mean, if you can chuck in like 4 elementals, it wins everything, so it doesn't get hard removed, which is kind of cool, but takes a lot of build around to make even like worth your time. I mean, you're just playing Sogoth is better if you only play 1 elemental with it, so at least 2 elementals, and that is very late in the game, so it might. That's kind of the problem with it, right? Like, you need to play 2 elementals turn 8. You need to have saved them a low cost elementals, like at most 4 mana, and playing 2 of them in the same turn 8, and then playing a turn 9 play that might not even stick. It's like you're going all in on Ostruk. It's not that powerful. I don't think it's worth it. The downside being that you need to play 2 elementals turn 8, right? Or at least for it to even be good. I think it needed to be a card with maybe like at most be. I think if you played an elemental the last turn, gain plus 10 health, that would be a better effect than gain plus 5 for each elemental, because it's not that common that you play so many elementals that late in the game, I don't think. And I think that's the problem with it, actually. I don't think this will see much play because of that. You need to hold your elementals for turn 9, because that's just way too late in Hearthstone. You need to contest and interact with the board along the way, right? So very underpowered considering that theme there. Sadly, I would like it to be good, but I don't think it is. I don't think this will see any play because of that. Sadly. All right, that was the last card, and that was the wrap up. First review. This was 31 out of 135 cards reviewed by me. We'll probably put this up on YouTube for later.